honesty, the discussion has now turned to something much more strategic in terms of compliance infrastructure, while the crypto community has been waiting for a breakthrough in regulatory clarity. Anti-money laundering laws, which seldom ever make news, might hold the key to XRP becoming the worldwide bridge currency that Ripple has long dreamed of. In particular, revisions to the travel regulation are being considered by the US Congress, a section of financial law that might be the long-awaited entry permit for XRP into the conventional banking industry. This is not merely an administrative change. It might eliminate one of the main obstacles to XRP adoption and change the way banks engage with cryptocurrencies. This is policy, not hype, and it's happening in the Capitol Hill corridors at the moment. Let's start by comprehending the TRIP regulation. The TRIP rule, which has its roots in the Bank Secrecy Act, requires financial institutions to exchange identifying information about the sender and recipient of funds when transactions exceed a specific threshold. In conventional finance, it was comparatively easy to enforce. For instance, your bank provides the recipient's bank with your name, account number, and other information when you send a wire transfer. However, this model was upset by the emergence of blockchain technology and decentralized finance. Transactions on public blockchains such as XRP Ledger are quick, anonymous, and cross borders. This makes it difficult to police the travel rule, not because cryptocurrency companies are unwilling, but rather because there aren't any standardized compliance tools or clear legal guidelines. The Crypto Asset National Security Enhancement and Enforcement Act, or CANTS, is designed to specifically address this issue. The measure aims to make clear how digital asset service providers should be subject to the travel regulation, and more importantly, how organizations can continue to be compliant when employing crypto assets like XRP. The absence of official guidelines has been a deal breaker for institutions that have expressed interest in RippleNet or using XRP as a bridge currency. Despite Ripple's copious documentation, big institutions have remained on the sidelines due to the possibility of violating Know Your Customer or anti-money laundering laws. However, this new law alters the rules by providing banks with a formal framework for handling digital assets in a way that is efficient, transparent, and lawful. Ripple is in a unique position to benefit from this advancement. Ripple's first approach was to integrate with established finance rather than replace it, in contrast to many other cryptocurrency startups that arose from a culture of decentralization and disruption. Ripple has therefore long made investments in compliance supporting tools. The Compliance Center was created specifically to support anti-money laundering checks, while the RippleNet messaging system enables safe communication between financial institutions. These technologies are in line with the current codification efforts by Congress. To put it another way, Ripple has already constructed the infrastructure that the legislation is now requesting. For a moment, consider a situation in which a bank with headquarters in the US want to use XRP to settle international payments. This bank would have to conduct, well, a lot of due diligence in the absence of certainty over travel rule compliance, and it might be fine if it made a mistake. However, that same bank could utilize XRP knowing that every transaction complies with anti-money laundering requirements because the CANSI Act was in effect and Ripple's technologies were already integrated. This is precisely what a passport is, a technological and legal framework that permits XRP to transcend regulatory boundaries. Let's now examine a practical illustration of this in the actual world. SBI Holdings, a significant Ripple partner in Japan, has been utilizing XRP in real-world financial settings. Clear and uniform regulatory frameworks for cryptocurrency assets, including anti-money laundering standards, have been made available by Japan's Financial Services Agency, or FSA. Because of this clarity, SBI has been able to use XRP for anything from ATM withdrawals to cross-border payments. It's not merely conjecture, it's happening. XRP is used by SBI bank customers who may access it just as easily as cash. Why? Since Ripple had the resources and Japan provided the regulations. And let's not forget about the timing. Clarity on travel regulations is being pushed for in tandem with larger efforts to regulate the cryptocurrency sector. To finally bring order to the turmoil, we've seen progress on the Loomis-Gilligan framework, the Fit 21 bill, and rising support from both Republicans and Democrats. International pressure is another factor. Member governments have been urged by the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, to implement the travel rule for digital assets. And a variant of this is already included in the Markets and Capital Markets Crypto assets, or MiCA, law of the European Union. Now that the United States is catching up, XRP stands to gain. What does this signify then for Ripple's long-term plan? This implies that the institutional partners of Ripple, many of whom have been covertly testing XRP, may now go online. More volume, liquidity, and use cases outside of speculative trading are also anticipated. Additionally, it suggests that the very institutions that have been reluctant may finally acknowledge XRP's significance as a worldwide liquidity coin. And in all honesty, the regulations were unclear, not because they didn't recognize the benefit. Those regulations are now being drafted. Opponents may contend that compliance contradicts the decentralization philosophy. However, as you can see, Ripple has always supported transparency rather than being anti-regulation. In actuality, Ripple is assisting in the development of the cryptocurrency sector in addition to safeguarding banks by maintaining AML compliance. To be honest, there is a significant change in the plot here. The SEC is no longer threatening to sue XRP for being a rogue asset. Rather, it's becoming into a model of how crypto may be done well, which is a very potent change. Here, we need to also think about the worldwide ramifications. Institutions are becoming more interested in nations that have enacted AML regulations tailored to the crypto industry because they provide a stable, regulated environment. Blockchain enterprises have drawn to Singapore, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates. If it offers such transparency, the US might establish itself as the world leader in crypto innovation. With its enterprise-ready infrastructure, XRP will be among the first to profit if it does. Let's discuss reasonable deadlines. Other bills, including the CANCI Act, are not yet law. Committees, floor discussions, and perhaps reconciliation if the House and Senate versions diverge will be required. However, there is support from all parties, and even regulators are publicly demanding more precise regulations. Both Fed Chair Jerome Powell and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen have recognized the need for improved AML regulations that take into account contemporary financial technologies. For its part, Ripple is still growing internationally and provide technological solutions that facilitate rather than complicate compliance. What then should cryptocurrency investors and holders of XRP learn from all of this? First, realize that innovation is not hampered by regulations, it's uncertainty. The goal of the Washington proposal is to make cryptocurrency usable by organizations, not to eradicate it. Second, acknowledge that Ripple has been predicting this moment for years. Other projects concentrated on price pumps and meme culture, whereas Ripple constructed the plumbing for the financial system of the future. XRP is in a great position to profit now that politicians are catching up. To sum up, the change of the travel rules involves more than a simple administrative task: digital assets, use it as a passport to access the physical economy. This validates XRP's strategy, which has always placed a high priority on utility and compliance. Ripple's partners, such as SBI, are already demonstrating that real-world adoption is feasible under the correct circumstances, and its tools already meet the requirements that the law is beginning to demand. Now, the United States has the opportunity to duplicate that achievement on a national level. If it does, XRP will not just endure, but flourish. Notice, this movie is solely intended for informational and educational reasons. It isn't financial guidance. Before making any investing decisions, please conduct your own research and speak with a financial advisor.